Before I turn to my panelists for Q&A, let's have a little bit of an audience reaction. Let's hear where our audience is with respect to financing for climate transition. So I'll ask by raise of hands, tell me, are we in a comfortable position with respect to financing for this transition? Raise of hand, are we comfortable? Oh, none. Okay. Do you think we are in a very tough situation with respect to financing for this transition? Okay, there are some hands which go behind, so there is a little bit of, there are people who believe that we don't have the right money to be able to fuel this. And how many of you think that we are somewhere in the middle, we are starting to make some moves, but a lot needs to be done to be able to move forward? Okay, this is a fantastic, thank you audience for your participation. So this sets it up really well. I think everyone realizes the importance, but people believe there's lots more that needs to be done to really get our financing act right. And look, it's not so easy. I mean, of course, the solar and wind has been now very well studied, gets a good financing. But as we start moving towards, some of the newer aspects, green hydrogen, we start moving towards biofuels, there are certain challenges which financiers are facing. We still have a challenge on understanding the risk properly. We still have challenges on making sure that technology is understood properly. So there are real challenges on both the sides. And let's discuss some of these finer aspects with our panelists. Let me invite Abhijit ji first on the, as a first panelist. Look, Oil India has been at the forefront of India's hydrocarbon sector, and aligned with the transition goals. You have also set up, you are planning to invest some 25,000 crore rupees, that's what is in the public domain, in your low carbon initiatives, which will be about 15 to 20% of your capex. That's pretty sizable. You have also set up a new subsidiary for green energy. You are Oil India, we have to still secure oil. So tell us a little bit about your medium and long-term plans towards traditional and new clean energy projects. What conversations are happening in your board meetings? Just give us a little bit of an insider feel. And what kind of companies really provide you some good inspiration?
Thank you, Ashish, for the question. Before I begin, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me here to be part of this August gathering, to be part of the esteemed panel that we have here today. Now, before I answer your question, I would like to say a few things about transition, what exactly transition means, and how old is transition. If you look at it, the transition has always been there and it's been happening since ages. Now, if I look at the Indian picture, soon after we attained independence, the challenge before the government was to kind of address the household issues with respect to the fuel that they were using for cooking. When we were, those who are on the wrong side of 50, like me, possibly have seen wood or charcoal being the fuel for cooking. And now over the years, we have transformed, we have transitioned to kerosene, then to LPG, and now we are having LPG, PNG, CNG, all together. So the transition is not a new thing, even though there is a lot of buzz around that word energy transition. Now, with respect to your specific question as to what we are doing in Oil India, I would like to say that in Oil India, we have set a target to be an integrated energy company with a balanced portfolio across the traditional energy, that's oil and gas, and the new clean energy projects that are coming up. Our target is to be a part of both. We cannot really disown the past, disown the traditional energy that has led us to this level. With respect to what we are doing in the traditional segment, I would like to inform that we have launched Mission 4 Plus, which basically is to reach a target crude oil production of 4+ million metric tons and gas production of 5 BCM. So that is before us, and we are taking all steps necessary to reach those targets. We are undertaking significant exploration efforts. We are investing heavily in development of the discovered wells. Alongside, we are also investing in offshore projects. We are currently doing drilling in Andaman offshore, which earlier used to be a no-go area. So these are some of the things we are doing in the traditional E&P segment. As far as clean energy is concerned, our target is to have a clean energy mix of roughly 5 to 7% by the year 2030 and 12 to 15% by the year 2040 in the overall energy mix of our company. So that, I think, is a good target for us to achieve, and we are making good progress in that regard. For achievement of these things, we have recently formed our wholly owned subsidiary, which is Oil India Green Energy Limited. So Oil India Green Energy Limited will play a critical role in achievement of those targets. The targets can be split into two parts. There are certain immediate targets to be achieved, which basically include 25 CBG plants that we are going to set up across different parts of India. We have identified states. We have kind of signed MOUs with a number of state governments. So this is the CBG front. We have also tied up with our energy, our technology and equity partners. Everything is in place, and we look forward to having those CBG plants come up in the days ahead. The long-term vision of Oil Green Energy Limited would be to venture into other areas, which are mostly green hydrogen. We already have a 100 kilowatt plant at Jorhat in Assam, which has a capacity to produce 30 kgs of green hydrogen a day. We are also into biofuels. That is also going to come. Then sustainable aviation fuel is one area which is another focus area for us.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that we have planned for this subsidiary that we have set up. And the other question was?
So I think you have given such a comprehensive overview
for
an oil company to be speaking so convincingly about all your new energy projects. I'm very impressed, and I think our transition is in very safe hands. I'll come to you on the second question a bit later. Let me just pick up what Abhijit just said, Anjana, to you on green hydrogen. Look, GAIL anyway has been historically a very important player from our natural gas ecosystem, and I think you have been also setting up and doing a bunch of innovation projects. But let's come to green hydrogen, where you also have, you have a demonstration project, a small project that is running very well. Because, and I want you to be very specific, because I'm going to go to Prasad after this. Look, newer fuels have unknown risks. They still do not have scale. We still don't know what pricing will happen, for example, for green hydrogen 5 years from now. You want bankers to come in, but yet we do not know what risks are associated with these projects. So what can industry do to really make life a bit easier for bankability of these projects? I mean, I've asked you a very specific question, but you can be a little bit broader on, we hear a lot about green hydrogen. How can we really get it right from financing perspective?
So thank you, Ashish. As you said, all newer technology, not even the newer fuel technologies, all new technologies, they come with inherent risks. So there is a risk of investment going a failure. The risk of failure is there. Risk of huge investment in the form of initial capital cost is there. There is a risk of affordability is there. Because initial days, the cost is so high that its acceptability in the market is not there. There is a risk of financing is there. You don't get the right kind of finance mix for the project. So to overcome that, we are supporting projects, newer technology projects, and GAIL has it. We have a first of its kind and the biggest so far. Green hydrogen plant in we have started as to be future ready and experiment and develop green hydrogen indigenously. So we have this plant which we have invested around 250 crores and it is, as I said, it's the biggest so far. It has a capacity of 4.3 tons per day of green hydrogen. And we are making our efforts to make hydrogen acceptable in the market. And we are keeping ourselves ready. The inherent risk with hydrogen is its transportation and storage. So we are doing research in that area as well. We are mixing hydrogen in one of the city gas networks, that is Avantika Gas Limited in Indore, and we are mixing and experimenting. And that experiment we did in collaboration with EIL and IIT Kanpur. So far, we have been successful in blending 5% by volume hydrogen in the city gas network. So that way we are keep making ourselves future ready. There is a challenge of, as you said, that price risk, medium-term price risk is there. It is not so far affordable, but we are sure that in future, as technology grows, the pricing won't be a challenge, and it will find its acceptance in the market.
Excellent point. And look, today we accept solar, but at some point of time, solar also rode that curve, right? So it's not that on day one, solar was completely viable proposition. So Prasad, look, I mean, this is a beautiful example. Industry is doing its bit. She has put 250 crore rupees to demonstrate a project.
Further to you asked a question, how can industry help to make this grow? So like GAIL has helped, GAIL is doing its bit. All companies, large companies, they can come forward and do their bit in making energy transition a success and help newer fuels to grow. Even with some viability gap funding from the government and making obligatory use of hydrogen, this can find the way and be successful in future.
All right, that's very good. So look, I mean, she has given more ideas, but fundamentally industry is moving forward. Abhijit is putting money, she is putting money. There is a largest green hydrogen plant. But today you go and talk to any banker, I'm not sure they will be very excited to talk to you, but I don't think so they're writing the checks there. So how are financial institutions working closely with these energy companies, hard to abate sectors on stepping up financing for clean energy? And look, given that you represent a global bank, we'll also love to hear if you have some interesting examples around the world of what we can learn in India about financing.
Thanks. So very, very interesting question, Ashish. I think just from Standard Chartered perspective or even from an international bank perspective, sustainability, transition finance are really core agenda for all of us. And particularly in Standard Chartered, I think we are in a footprint where climate impact is real. And I think for us, the challenge is to help our businesses, communities to kind of build resilience as they face the onslaught of climate change and ensure that they have the opportunity to have a thriving future. From a sustainability and transition finance agenda, I think we have ourselves committed to be net zero from our own operations by 2025. And from the financing activity that we support for our clients, to be there by 2030. So clearly it means significant level of capital commitment that we have to make. And just to give you some numbers, and then I'll come to green hydrogen. And between Jan 2021 and 2024, we were responsible for almost raising $105 billion of capital in the green and sustainable sector across our footprint markets. Our objective is to reach a 300 billion number by 2030. So clearly we are there to about a third of it and still 2/3 to go in the next 4 years. I think while if you have to tackle the issue of new sectors, new technologies, and Ashish, you brought it up yourself. If I just rewind 10 years back, 2013, India's renewable sector, right? Solar was 12 rupee, 14 rupee, 15 rupees. The sector had significant challenges. State discoms were, delaying payments by 9 months, 12 months. Capacity was like 25, 30 gigawatts. Today, we crossed 200 gigawatts of capacity in January this year. So clearly from 30 to 200 gigawatts in almost like 10, 12 years. What is the reason for that? And I think obviously the government took some significant efforts to actually bring in renewable energy intermediary companies, whether it's Solar Energy Corporation, NTPC, NHPC. So effectively to kind of make these projects more bankable. There used to be grid backdowns, which were kind of, the green corridor was set in motion, and then obviously we don't see any backdowns in the grid, as we finance more and more projects. So I think to cut a long story short, in terms of the way the clean tech sector has moved, where it was dominated by lending by public sector banks, tariffs were feed-in tariffs, there was no competitive bidding, and now you have almost 150, 60 gigawatts of new capacity added. Solar has crossed 100 gigawatts of installations in the last 10 years. The reason was that there was a lot of commercial incentive for developers to set up these projects, and then you have seen a lot of international capital, whether it's banks like us, or even talk about any of the infra funds, private equity funds. I think more than $20 billion of capital has been invested in this sector alone in the last 5-6 years, and it continues to grow. So clearly, I think the sector has moved on in the right direction, and you have seen a lot of participation from international lenders who are very, very competitive these days in these sectors, competing with the Indian private and public sector banks to finance these projects. Green hydrogen, I think, is really the next big challenge. Gray hydrogen is about $3 a kg today. Government's own agenda is to kind of get that price down to $1 a kg by 2030, which is extremely important for the government, but equally challenging is to whether you get to a 5 million ton capacity by 2030 at a marginal cost which is less than grey hydrogen. 2 or 3 things if I were to look at it purely from a bankability perspective. Counterparty risk, and I think this is where the parallel with the renewable industry is important. Like 2 sectors which are today consuming more than 90% of green hydrogen: fertilizers and refining. For refining, it is like 4%, 2 to 3% or 4% of the production cost that they have in their cost curve. Fertilizers has its own challenges because it's a sector which is cross-subsidized by the government and so on. So I think introduction of purchase obligations on refining companies, because for them the impact is only going to be 2 or 4%, 2 to 4%. That's extremely important because you had renewable purchase obligations which were implemented, and then the rest is history. So unless and until you actually implement purchase obligations on refining companies to start with, and then gradually cover some of the other sectors, more projects will only come up once you have that. I think today the challenges that we are facing in green hydrogen is there are no long-term offtake contracts. There are a lot of global players, whether it's Japan, Korea, Europe, who are looking to tie up green ammonia from India and other geographies. But I think long-term contracts are not really there. So I think if you start, looking at your own market rather than focusing on your export markets and make these obligations mandatory, I think you will see a lot more activity and interest from international lenders to finance these projects. And I think the capital requirement, based on various estimates, is almost like $90 to $100 billion in the whole green hydrogen ecosystem over the next 5 to 6 years. So there's a lot to do. And from an international banking community, I think we are very, very excited to kind of support this transition.
Excellent. I think some good numbers there. And clearly, I think the solar story is something that we like to emulate. Afeena, you represent SED Fund. I think it's a story that needs to be told. We do not fully understand the story. Tell us something about SED, your activities, your presence in India.
Sure, yeah. Okay, so can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So SED Fund, you can call it SED or SED, basically stands for Sustainability, Equity and Diversity. And we are a venture philanthropy. So to make it simple, it's a grant-giving organization. But our mandate is basically energy transition. Anything and everything to do with energy transition is what we look at and we support. We try and support new and innovative ideas, which then eventually take a solutions-oriented approach towards energy transition. Again, back to my point about energy transition. The way we look at it is like any idea which is new, it's risky funding and nobody wants to fund, and that's where we come. You know, we have that risk appetite to push in our money and see an idea grow into a concept, right? But then it needs to be scaled up. So we then take up, we support accelerators further through startups so that they can then move on their scale-up journey. We don't just try and leave them there. And all the issues which we talked about, solar, hydrogen, we are supporting incubators who are supporting those kind of startups as well. We work pretty closely with the government as well as the private sector, and the idea is just to help them meet the ambitions of energy transition. Our approach to do this is three-pronged. So how do we do this? For this whole idea to become a reality, we first try and create a demand for it. Once the demand is created, then we try and create a pipeline of clean energy projects, clean tech projects. And then finance, the beast comes in. So we help raise finance for those projects. I have multiple examples for these, but I think I can give the time back to you so that I can come to the examples
Excellent.
in the next.
Excellent. Why don't I go back to the audience? So we have heard a whole, plethora of actually very, very candid comments, very, very good ideas, what can be done. Our bankers came with very sharp numbers of what needs to be done. So I will ask the question to the audience, and again, it's a poll. Who should take the biggest step forward when it comes to transition financing? And I have three options for you. Existing big companies like Oil India, GAIL, and the private refineries, large organizations, they earn money, they should start investing a lot more. Second option will be commercial bankers, like we have Prasad here from Standard Chartered. I mean, they are in the business of financing, they should do it. Or third is the whole set of development financial institutions and MDBs. Their job is to promote some of these ideas, just not speak about it. So with your raise of hand, tell me who should take the biggest step forward when it comes to financing? Existing large organizations in oil and energy. Okay, I can see about 15-20% hands going up. Commercial institutions, bankers. I see a lot of them, including Anjana. Thank you, and I'm going to come to you. DFIs, development financial institutions, and MDBs. Okay, again, that's where it is. So I think both of you, Abhijit and Anjana, you're off the hook. I think it's more about the bankers and the MDBs which have to really answer and move forward. Tell me, Abhijit, what challenge you face when you work with the banks, the financial institutions, when it comes to green energy, to newer technologies, to transition?
I think so far we haven't faced any challenge because we haven't approached them.
Okay.
So to begin with, I must tell that the challenges are yet to come. However, the challenges are expected and anticipated. As I have mentioned, that we have created this Oil India Green Energy Limited with an authorized capital of 100 crore, which is minuscule by any standards. However, we'll have to scale it up. And in order to scale it up, we need to get finance from the financial institutions, bankers, DFI, all of that. Now, whatever I have seen over the years is that the renewables, the funding is readily available. Wind and solar energy, 80 to 85% of the financing that is happening now is through the debt route. So the bankers are very okay, this area they can invest in. Now, when it comes to green hydrogen, maybe biofuels, sustainable aviation fuel, etc., the market is not tested yet. And what I feel is that it is not just the bankers who will have to come forward and help us. We will also have to give them a lot of comfort so that they can invest in our projects. With two bankers sitting next to me, I'm sure they would be interested to invest in our forthcoming projects. Madam is having the free fund. Her fund is absolutely free, no cost attached to it. So if she finds merit in whatever we are doing in this country, possibly Madam would come forward. And he is flush with funds. For him also, funding wouldn't be a problem. Now, issue is like, when you'll have to scale up green hydrogen, etc., we are doing it. There's a startup doing the work for us. So bankers will also have to appreciate that for these sectors to grow, there's a need for investment in R&D. So R&D investment will not fetch you return within a short period of time. So for that, they will have to kind of get a bit prepared so that their returns will come a little later.
Excellent.
Thank you.
That was, you are very soft on the bankers, but that's, I can understand that. Maybe I'll ask Anjana, you a question on natural gas. Look, I mean, even when Honorable PM made the inauguration speech, he said that the mix of gas in India's energy mix will go up. You are the organization you are the organization which is really bringing gas to all of us. So we will rely on traditional fuels. Natural gas is the cleanest traditional fuel. What is GAIL doing? What are we doing as a country to increase our mix mix of gas in our energy?
So you are very right. Natural gas is definitely the cleanest fossil fuel available. It is less polluting as compared to coal by 50% and by 30% to fuel oils. So, and government has a vision to increase share of natural gas, which is currently 6% to 15% by 2030. And there are efforts being made in this regard. But there are challenges, still challenges to making natural gas reach 15%. First and foremost fuel, according to me, is its affordability. Natural gas is still not that affordable in the country because 50% of, we are dependent on imports for 50% of our requirements. And this percentage is increasing as demand is increasing in the country. Domestic sources are stagnant. They are not increasing in commensurating with the demand, which is growing. But there is a huge potential for natural gas to grow. Currently, natural gas is being used majorly in fertilizer and CGD sectors. Industries find it challenging to use. They use this on and off. When the spot prices come down, natural gas gets affordable as compared to other polluting fuels. They use natural gas. Otherwise, they again switch back to the other fuels. So we are like, I was coming to the potential. The power sector has huge potential in our country to use natural gas. We have 25 gigawatt of gas-based capacity, which is lying idle, and it has a potential to use natural gas up to 100 SCMD, which is 50% of gas consumption at the level of gas consumption which currently is in the country. So at 70% plant load factor, if power plants are run, they have a potential to use up to 100 SCMD. But the challenge again is its affordability. We don't have enough domestic gas available which can be given to power sector on subsidized prices. And RLNG is a challenge cost is a challenge to them. So we have a huge potential in power sector. Then industries, if natural gas is brought under GST, it becomes competitive as compared to other polluting fuels. And again, it has a huge potential in industries. One small town in Gujarat, Morbi, it is a ceramic hub of India. They have overnight government, the state government, they made it mandated for the ceramics in the Morbi town to use natural gas, and demand, can you believe it? A demand of 3.5 to 4 SCMD came from a small town in Gujarat, Morbi. So can you imagine that kind of a potential we have in our country? So the demand, we have a huge potential. The reason is affordability. So if natural gas is brought under GST, we have a huge potential in this country for increasing share of natural gas from 6 to not even 15%, maybe to a higher percentage. And GAIL is doing its every bit in increasing share of natural gas in the country. We are currently importing 14 MMTP of LNG and have a target to increase it to 21 in next 4-5 years. We have already tied up another 2.25 to 2.5 MMTPA, and we are further scouting for opportunities in the international market for importing. We have an infrastructure of above 16,000 kilometers of natural gas grid in the country, pipelines, and another 4,000 kilometers are underway, which will be completed in next 1 year. So we are with government in increasing share of natural gas, but there has to be affordability of natural gas in the country, or it should be mandated to use in view of the pollution which is happening in the country.
Okay, the passion for gas clearly shows. Affordability was a key buzzword that I heard both from Abhijit and Anjana. I will pose the question to you, Prasad. Is green finance affordable? There is no difference in green finance cost versus a traditional finance cost. Is this sentiment that you hear from consumers of finance that actually this is all talk, there is hardly any advantage green finance has? Is it true? Not true?
Sure. I think a very relevant question. I think if I look at it holistically, it's not just about pricing. As Abhijit said, that especially in the renewable sector, banks are now willing to kind of provide leverage of up to 80-85% completed projects, under construction projects. So actually, where we were 10 years ago and now, I think things have evolved quite a bit. Green bonds, for example, that's another sector where we are seeing a lot of bank appetite being freed up by issuance of green bonds in the international bond market, where we are seeing a lot of interest from ESG funds who are looking to invest in bonds. So I think pricing, of course, is extremely important, and I think we all know Indian clients are very, very price sensitive. So I mean, financing also, that's an area where we have to compete. But I think clearly the fact that the market is developed, we are seeing significant volumes, construction as well as completed projects getting refinanced. I think pricing is clearly a focus area for clients, and I think banks are kind of willing to meet or get to those levels, otherwise we wouldn't be seeing so much of activity in this space.
Right. We're almost at time, so let's see. Afeena, can you give us one other interesting market which is, which we should look at? I mean, you have the advantage of looking at the world.
Sure. I would actually take 1 more minute and I'll at least give one example of
Sure.
India. So when I say we try and help raise capital for the clean energy projects, there's this, we're supporting E&Y, and they created this platform called Energy Transition Monitor. It's like a dashboard where they have all this approximately around 1,000 shovel-ready projects, clean tech projects ready for adoption who have not found the financial closure. So what this platform does is that it gives an assembly of all these projects which are ready, which makes it easier for the financiers to come and adopt. And not only that, we also suggest how to facilitate the project bankability of those projects, right? So that they can actually reach the financial closure. So it informs that. So I think that's also another, when we are talking about financing, how to also expose the projects which are there in the market to the bankers or to the investors is also super important. In other markets, we're also supporting Korea. Our partners in Korea are speaking to the policymakers, to the corporates, to the industries, associations, basically to like how to procure more and more renewables, and then to decarbonize their value chain while procuring it. Not only there, but also how to decarbonize their supply chain in India. So since we're short of time, since time's up.
Excellent. This has been fascinating. I'll still do one rapid fire. Just answer in one word or one phrase. What would you like to change in our financing world to really give tailwinds, or let's say a booster to our transition efforts? Abhijit ji?
You will have to accept the industry with open arms, have faith in them.
Okay.
This would take you miles.
Accept the industry with open arms, Prasad. What do you have to say?
I think regulatory intervention in terms of, favorable policy.
Favorable policy. Afeena?
Strong policy framework, and also startups exist, guys. Come
Startups
and
exist. Actually, the exhibition was fantastic. Anjana?
Blended finance, maybe.
Blended finance. Lovely. Thank you very much. This has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much to all my panelists and to the audience.